You got it? I can help you. They can wait. You got it? All right, perfect. Oh, good morning, church. It's a good day, right? It's a good day. Just as a reminder, next Sunday, one service next Sunday, as well as it being our big volunteer push. Again, big volunteer push for the whole year. Janelle Hopper's heading that up, so we need you guys. And it's going to work very well with our concepts of what we are going to talk about over the next few weeks. So be here. It's going to be a great day. It is a great day today. And today we're going to continue this idea of redefining or reimagining how we relate to God. And if you've been with us the last few weeks, we've discussed these 4 different topics. 2 weeks ago, it was a life under God approach and then a life over. Today, we're going to be about life from God, and then next week will be for God. And again, we call these God postures, and it's a discontented experience of relational habits many Christians feel that they have with God. Again, it's a discontented approach. It's not all fulfilling. It doesn't encompass our entire relationship with Him. And today, again, we're going to talk about life from God. It is our values and way of life are simply projected onto God and incorporated into a religious system in which we receive divine assistance to meet our desires. Let me give a little explanation. Okay, so last week, I yelled at Grace. Grace was over here, and I told her to look at that guy on the screen. I'm not going to do that this time. Edwin, I'm going to show you a picture. Is that all right? Hey, anybody heard of the name Herman Rorschach? Anybody know that? Most famously known for a concept called an ink blot test. I'm sure we've all heard of this before. Edwin, what do you see on that screen? A biblically accurate angel. That's my sister-in-law. I see a bat wearing a dress with steam coming out of the dress. That's what I see. It's weird. Here's another one. I see 2 guys from Alice in Wonderland playing patty cake. Maybe 2 apes wearing a bow tie in the middle with a flying broom in the background. This is what I think about all the time, you guys. Here's one. Jason Henry, one of our elders and worship leader. What do you see? A buffalo hide. I still, to this day, don't know what I see in this. I just see a flat thing with a piece of paper folded in half. The idea behind this test, and some of you saw something and you were like, this is what I saw, or this is what I saw. The idea behind this is your subconscious. This is what you subjectively see, and it's different based on each person. Edwin saw an angel. I saw a bat wearing a dress. We're not going to judge. We don't judge here. That's weird of my part. Dr. Scott McKnight, he is a New Testament scholar at Northern Baptist Theological Seminary in Illinois. And in his class every year, he does a test that's very similar to that approach and that idea of an ink blot test. We call this the Jesus test. And he asks his students a very simple question. How do you, not how do we, but how do you see Jesus? You ever thought about that? I did this test myself, and I don't even know this guy. I don't even know Dr. McKnight, but I'm super frustrated because he's right. He says more than not, we put our own subjectivity or the things that we know and we place it on Jesus, or we place it on God. Personally, I've always said I believe that Jesus was one of the most emotionally intelligent beings ever to walk this earth. And it's interesting because emotional intelligence is something I study a ton of, and I strive to be better at it. And yet here I am putting that on him. Is that a true statement? Well, absolutely. Jesus was emotionally intelligent. But he says 100% of the time, his students put their subjective perspective and place it on our Savior. The test results would suggest that even though we like to think we are becoming more like Jesus, the reverse is probably more the case. We try to make Jesus like ourselves. Remember last week, we talked about life over God and using our own human brain and our own concepts and leaving God out of it. I said that's what I struggle with the most. This collectively, someone who works in ministry, this one is the one I see the most people in our country struggle with. So basically, what is our country based on? What is it we're based on? We are a consumerism-based culture. That is our country. And so if this is correct, and if you really want to get kind of basic with what life from God is, it's basically consumerism with a Jesus bumper sticker thrown onto it. Because our lives here in this country revolve around consumerism. I'm telling you, I don't grow my own food. I wish I did. I don't know how to build a TV, so what do? I go buy one and hang it up to watch the Rangers. We're out. I don't know how to fix a blender, so I might go and buy one. What about you? Your vacuum cleaner doesn't work? You just go get a new one. You want to get real? This is real talk. You want to get real? Your marriage isn't satisfying you. Just go try a new one. You don't like your family? Just go get a new one. It's fine. What about your church community? It's no longer meeting the needs that you want. Just go find a new one. Here's the worst one. A person not meeting your specifications, go buy a new one. 50 million slaves to this day still exist in our world, the highest we've ever had in our world. That's 1 in every 150 people. We look at people as possessions in our daily lives. So of course, we're going to look at things and the things we quote unquote need. So if it's infecting our life in every way, shape, and form, you better believe that consumerism, if it is our life, then consumerism has become greater than our God. And we put more emphasis on the things than on the maker. It's that idea that I talked about last week about a watchmaker. It's like you want to have a relationship with this thing and not with the company that made it. This breaks, I need it fixed, so I need to have a relationship with them. If my life is broken, I need to have a relationship with the Almighty. When asking God for things becomes the entirety of how we relate to Him, we are placing ourselves at the center, and then we expect God to orbit around us. Let's see. All right. We're going to, it's our elder, Steve Sargent. He looks great, right? Such a good draw. I'm such a good artist. It's amazing. So this is us. If you want a picture or a snapshot of a life from God approach. And so here's an orbit, and here's, your friends. Here's your dog. Big fluffy ears. Looks the stupidest drawing ever. But then, whoop, here is God. What is wrong with this picture? It's in the wrong order. Isn't it interesting? When it's in the right order, things typically tend to turn out amazing. When it's God first, others second, self last. You see, another problem with this idea is that, as of last week, remember, that was the problem with life over God. It puts humans in charge, and if we are at the center of this, that's the problem. And another issue is that at any time, we can replace this with our work, with our school, with our stuff. And then when difficult things happen, we erase all this, and then we go back to here again. Read a couple studies recently. There is a very strong, and again, there's nothing 100% on this, but the common understanding is that the highest, most attended day of church in the past 25 years, take a wild guess. Easter is always it every year. Absolutely correct. Every year, Easter is the case. And we call these C&Es. Why is it that Easter is dedicated to showing up to church? Aren't we supposed to live daily, every day as a sacrifice? Aren't we supposed to be together? Easter's nothing special just about Easter, but we have taken that day to be the number one. Another day is 9/11. The Sunday after 9/11. There are many studies that show that day, and why? Because we are stressed, things were crazy, we are sad, we're looking for answers, and then we call on God. Not calling on his name every day, because church, if you are new here and you don't know Southeast, if you want to come and talk to me about this, I will tell you this one truth: God is greater than our lives. God is the and all. And Paul will talk about this. He says, I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but it's Jesus who lives in me. And the life that I live in the flesh, I live by the faith in the Son of God. Our lives are dedicated to him. He is greater than our jobs. He is greater than our families. He is greater than us. And that is why we give all praise and honor back to him. Consumerism is not greater than God, and that is the lie we have been told. We have become spiritual lepers. Spiritual lepers. What does that even mean? I didn't know a lot about leprosy, but there's a doctor, Dr. Paul Brand. He works with leper patients in India. And he says, if I could give my patients something, if I could give them one thing, he says it would be the ability to feel pain. Because pain is an amazing teacher. He says leprosy itself destroys all the nerve endings. So if they cut themselves somewhere, they can actually bleed out. That's a weird thing that over the course of time in our culture, because we are a consumeristic-minded culture, we have consumed so many things that have deadened God's presence in our lives. And I say we very generally, but I also mean that this is the one that most people struggle with. Did you know that in the United States, the average home, this is the average, has 4 different subscriptions of entertainment in their household. A lot of people don't use cable or satellite anymore, but we have 4 different ways of subscription. So even just our eyes and our senses, we use our phones to deaden ourselves, and that has worked its way into our congregations. We use this amusement to just shut our brains down. That's literally what amusement means. It means to not think. I say that all the time. If I want to go to a movie, I want to go to a popcorn movie. What does that mean? I don't want to think. I just want to see aliens get blown up or something. Like, that's what I want to go and watch. I just want to watch Will Smith, Independence Day. That's my jam. That's what I want to go and see. I don't want to have this big theological thing going through my brain when I'm watching the television. I want to not think, and I want to coast. So why are we not surprised that churches, especially the churches of Christ, are starting to shut down because of this concept of being a spiritual leper? It's infecting our worship services, our experiences. It's infecting our church programmings. We're just going. It's infecting our prayers. There are churches out there that I know of, that I've been a part of, that I see that on a regular basis. That we use a prayer to the Almighty, how we communicate with Him, just as a segue to get to the next thing. We are talking to the star breather. We are talking to the earth. He gave us the breath of life that we could be with Him one day, sent His Son down here. These concepts and these things, we should not be deadened to them. He is not the one that just gives us this amusement. So what does the Bible say about this? What is this? Is there a story we can pull from? You better believe there's a story we can pull from. If you have your Bibles, turn to Luke chapter 15. This is a very, very potent story. We know this story. Actually, our good friend Gerald Elliott talked about this story a few weeks back, so I'm not going to pull too much from it. One of those stories, kind of like a David and Goliath story or a Good Samaritan. It's made its way into pop culture, so even unchurched people know about this story. We call it the prodigal son. I'm going to call it the jerk. That's what this guy was. And I think it's very interesting that this was the younger brother. I'm the younger brother. So I can relate, and I know how selfish younger brothers can be. I'm going to get in trouble from my youngest today, but I can understand that idea. So we're going to call this guy the jerk. So let's set up this location a little bit. When Jesus tells this parable, he's down south, probably closer to the Dead Sea. This is kind of a topographical map with some stone. You see the Jordan River down the middle. Right there in the north, you see the Sea of Galilee. And then you see the Dead Sea. Those are those two round things. But this story doesn't take place here. However, it is referenced in a location that we will call Bet-Shen. And so here is that location. I actually have it written in my Bible. This is the Las Vegas of Israel. So in this location, you see the amphitheater in the background. You see Main Street right down the middle. You see the brothels over on the right. You see all the crazy stuff that somebody would go to squander all of their money. You actually see this in 1 Samuel where King Saul, this is also where King Saul's body was hung right here on this hill. Fun story, it wasn't blocked off, so I went in there and I started looking around at the dirt and I pulled a whole plate out. I'm not kidding. And I looked at it, I was like, this is crazy. And then it broke. And I was like, I gotta go. And so I ran away. Here's a little bit more of the top of that. But anyways, we go back to this idea, this location. And think about that now. It doesn't take a place to be a jerk. But as somebody who has been a jerk, I know that there is always hope. I know that I can always go back to the Father. And here's how we can prove that. Jesus continued. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So he divided his property between them. Jerk. He's not even passed away yet. And he's like, give me my inheritance. He wants his inheritance before the death. Let me say that again. My mom would take off her belt and if I wanted to do that. If I said, Mom, give me all of your money before you have passed, she'd be like, she's a baby boomer, so she knows better. She'd be like, get out of here, millennial, and tell me to go away. And I see that, and that lays the foundation for what he was. He was seeing the stuff and not focusing on the relationship. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. I said Jesus was very emotionally intelligent. He knew the people around him. He knew they would hear this story, and think of Bet-Shen. Oh, that totally makes sense. That's what I would say. I'd be like, oh, this guy took all of his money and went and threw it all away. Probably went to Vegas and just gambled it all away, and now he has nothing. And so he knew the people around him, and so they're probably thinking, it is Bet-Shen. And in this situation, this younger son, put the father's gifts over the father. This is quintessential life from God. We put more emphasis on the stuff, and that's why we turn to God when we need things. In times of stress, despair, instead of constantly going to him each and every day. You continue in verse 14. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country. He began to be in need, so he went and hired himself out to citizens of the country who sent him to the fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Sitting there telling him, he came to his senses finally. And he's like, what am I doing? My father's servants live better than this. Why am I doing this? So he goes back, and there's an interesting line in here that again, how many times have we read this story? Like 1 million? I just saw something. Verse 19, he gets there. He's thinking to himself, I am no longer worthy. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. He's not even saying, I want to come back into the fold and be your son again. He knows what his father is. He says, I just want to be a servant, if anything. I now know how good I have it. So just let me be in your presence, even if I'm not your son. That's the mindset he's going into. And what does the father do? Just like our father, he has a celebration, opens his arm and says, welcome home. I am glad you are here. That is the God we serve. Because this son finally realized that a relationship with the Father is what gave him a real life. And you even see this with the older brother who gets frustrated. I've been here this whole time. And he's like, yes, you have. You've been here the whole time. We are here today. And we need to realize that we get to have a real relationship with the Almighty. This jerk, in a sense, if you want to get real, he's more of an idolater. And that's anyone who exalts a created thing to the place reserved for the Creator. He put more emphasis on the finances, and then it went away. And that's the outcome of that situation. Life from God, I got two things, just two. This right here, we are not God. God goes here. It is in the wrong order. We are made in God's image. God is not made in our cultural image. God was here before us, he's here now, and he'll be here after us. That is the God you serve, and that is the God we get to worship. We need to remember we are made in his image. And church, focus on God, not just his gifts. Be thankful for the gifts, absolutely. But we don't just focus on those things, because then our relationship primarily turns into just the things and not the Spirit. Be back next week when we're finally going to cap out these for God postures. And we'll take a break for a week, but we're going to talk about this idea of life for God, where this pertains to ministry leaders, church. I want to continue this idea of how we can imagine, reimagine, redefine how we relate to the Almighty God. Let's stand. Let's close in a song. Church, we love you, but let's have a song.
Well, our God is the Lion